let's get started and explore the particle modeler. Typically that's used for creating clouds and animate them. So we will need to animate. I'm going to create an animation right here. And let's make it an easy 1, 2, 3. There you go. And that's definitely in the realm of possibilities for a 32-bit program. We have 76 megabytes required. No problem, as long as we don't go over 2 gigabytes. So we have 123 frames. And what we'll do is we'll turn them black. So I need to switch the secondary color here. I'll switch them so the secondary is black. And then I'll right-click on here and say clear all frames. So that will make it all black, and that will be a sequence of frames we may want to experiment with a few times. So let's see what the dimensions are. Image info 1024 by 768. Let's go and store this animation to disk so we don't waste much RAM, and we can use it easily by just clicking on here to restore it, right? Just like that. Alright, so now let's go to our filters, animated particle modeler. Right there. And there's many things we can do with that, and we will be exploring some of the basic features and some of the advanced features. But the first one we'll do is we'll just create a cloud and then fly through it. Right? So the animation will be one where we move the camera into the cloud. The cloud itself is not moving. We will have the camera go into it. That will be something we do here. Before that, let's go model it. So there's a couple of ways we can build the cloud. Here we'll simply add a sphere. And we'll see it's not really a sphere. It is here on this view, but from the side views it's actually kind of more of an oval. And we can also in the middle here find some randomization or deformation. And once we're ready with that, we can perhaps add another sphere and further deform it, and then click here for get ready to render. So we get a first look at this cloud. It's a little. It's basically some volumetric little dabs that are placed all around these dots. We can actually show the size of each cloud dab, and that's about it for our initial cloud. Now, if we wanted, we could be a little bit more sophisticated and add another cloud. Let's say add another sphere and even move it around. So you have a move, you have a scale, you have a couple of different things you can do with that, and you can rotate it too. All right, so let's do something like this. Rotate, okay, and also randomize this one, deform it. There, a little bit more randomization, deformation. We'll take a look at the other parameters later, minimum size, maximum size, the density of these blobs, and other ways to create these clouds. But for now, we're good. Let's go make this one ready to render. So we have a couple of things interfering here, and we're good to go. Let's go to animate. Now, if you want to use this, before we animate that, if you want to use this cloud again, you can save that. You can go here to save, and then navigate to where you want to save this. Let's say you have a folder and maybe particle modeler. Let's call it, let's create a folder, my first clouds, and go in there, and it'll be 0, 1. I think it will add a .cld automatically, CLD for cloud, of course, file saved. So we can later restore that if we want to. Alright, so we have clicked get ready to render. We can go now to animate, and here we go. By default the grid is visible. It will not be rendered, but we can also operate without it visible. It might be useful to see where things are. Now in the upper right corner you see what we can move around. We can move the cloud. We can move it into the scene, out of the scene with the left button. The right button you can move it up, left button up and closer to you. You can also do something similar, which is with the camera. So up here we were operating on the cloud, and you can also rotate the cloud. So you can go, whatever the current object is, you can say, well, right now I'm moving it. Then you can go and rotate it and do a bunch of things. But you can also switch to the camera. And so when you move the camera, now you see the whole grid, the whole scene. Come closer with the right button. You can operate this way. With the left button you move around. You also have 2 lights, and one of these lights is this one here. So you can grab this and move this light around, and then you have another one here. Now the lighting is subtle. You don't see a whole lot of shading difference here because we also have some general parameters here for how intense that backlight is, and some other parameters that were there before we even went into the animation side. So that was actually at the modeling level here. You do have some extra controls for the lighting. We'll experiment with that in due time. For now, we'll just go with this, and let's go set the camera in such a way. Let's go choose the camera and make sure we're in move camera mode. And what we want to do is simply fly into this, right? Fly through these clouds. So we're going to go from far away, something like this. Now we have the timeline down here, and this timeline we can basically set some keyframes. Right now I don't have any keyframes. If you ever start fresh, you may want to clear the keys, delete the keyframes. So now you have a start, and we're going to set a keyframe here and then go to the end, and simply we're still on camera and we're on move, and we will fly into this, through this cloud system right there. Okay, and then set the keyframe. Right, so we now have a movement like this where we fly through this. So that could be it, and we simply render the preview, or if we don't, we just see little dabs, little dots of where the different particles are. We can also do a little bit more. There is a secondary motion, we'll explore that later. There's a displacement field and just alive, which kind of makes it move a little bit. You see I'm moving forward, but they're also kind of moving on their own. We'll explore that some further. For now, let's just leave it like this and render it. Now, before we render, there's one more option to consider. Do you already have an animation back there? In our case, it's all black. But if you had some other animation there, you could basically render on top of that, right? You would keep the current frame. In our case here, we'll clear the frames, and we also don't care to see the grid, even though actually during rendering it will show it, but it will not render it, right? And that might be fixed in the future. We have other options here. The splats are what we're currently using in terms of the render style, but if you have a custom brush selected, you can actually make that the image, or the brush, the media really, with all the parameters of the brush that's going to be used. Right, so we'll stay with the splat for now. Change a little bit on the lighting here, and go render that. All right, so this could be a little bit on the slow side if you have an old system. Here I'm not going to complain, it's going pretty quick. And that will be it for our first video and introduction to the particle modeler to create some clouds, and it will get really gnarly at some point. So right now we're done. Let's go close this, and we can go and explore the animation that we have just created. All right, so this is something that you could possibly use to do some sort of transition. You could do, some fancy background, but this can get much more sophisticated, and we'll want to explore many different ways you can work with this particle modeler. That's part of PD Howler. Thanks for watching. See you next time.